Cambridge Analytica is a political consultant firm that, quote, uses data to change audience behavior and potentially influence votes. A promise big enough to draw powerful conservative investors like Steve Bannon and billionaire Robert Mercer. It all stems back to information obtained by a researcher. Psychology professor Alexander Kogan offered money to people to take a survey, but they had to install an app on Facebook, and that allowed the app to collect information about users and what they liked. Hundreds of thousands of users agreed, and that gave the app access to tens of millions of their friends who didn't consent. At the time, using that for academic purposes would have been allowed by Facebook, but Cambridge Analytica reportedly bought the data and used it to create voter profiles, which was reportedly shared with the Trump and pro-Brexit campaigns. Cambridge Analytica denies this. For now, there's no obvious illegality here, but to whistleblower Christopher Wiley, who worked at Cambridge Analytica, it was unethical. He made that point in a Canadian exclusive interview with The National.
The fact that we went and harvested upwards of 50 million people's personal, and private data without their consent is wrong.
Facebook knew about this data leak in 2015 and says it demanded Cambridge Analytica delete the information and was told it was. Now it says it's learned not all the data was removed. But one of the big questions here, why didn't Facebook disclose to millions of users that their information was accessed without their knowledge? Briar Stewart has more on the pressure facing the social network tonight.
With 2 billion users, Facebook is a trove of personal information. People keep logging on and sharing, even as the company is under increasing pressure to explain just how it manages and safeguards data.
I'm not surprised that there was a data breach, just because all the information and money that goes into Facebook.
I mean, it's terrible, and it's not surprising.
Facebook is now under more scrutiny as legislators in the US and the UK vow to get to the bottom of how information from tens of millions of Facebook profiles ended up in Cambridge Analytica's hands.
I don't think Facebook was straight with us. Facebook have known about this data breach for over 2 years. They did nothing to make sure that the data that was taken was destroyed properly as they requested it should be done.
Facebook insists that what happened was not a data breach. Today it announced it's hired a firm to conduct an audit of Cambridge Analytica, saying that if reports that the data still exists are true, it would be a grave violation of Facebook's policies and an unacceptable violation of trust and the commitments these groups made.
The currency for companies is trust.
But analysts say these revelations are tarnishing Facebook's own image.
The reputation that'd be in bed with somebody that's doing things that aren't transparent, that's a problem. And I think that's where it's going to come down for people, is that people like a bit of transparency. They want to know what's happening with their data.
Canada's Privacy Commissioner is looking into whether any Canadian Facebook accounts were impacted.
So essentially, they're all collaborating on the data.
And data activist Paul-Olivier Dehaye says some likely were. He's been looking into the UK-based Cambridge Analytica for the past few years and has been helping Americans find out about the information the company has on them.
What data do you have? What did you do with it? Where did it come from? And where did you send it onwards?
He says by requesting that, it shines a light on just how personal data was used and who benefited from all the information gleaned from those online profiles. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
So where does this leave Facebook users? 18 million in Canada alone. Well, for that, let's bring in technology reporter Matthew Braga. We should point out, first of all, that the rules have changed in a pretty significant way since 2015 for Facebook.
Yeah, so prior to 2015, if you made an app, you could access information about the person using the app, but also all of their friends as well. That was a pretty big amount of information to give access to developers. And so, yeah, since 2015, can no longer do that. It's just the person using the app.
But the person using the app still opens the door to people having access to their information. So what's your advice for Facebook users?
So certainly, if you want to reduce the ability for people to target you with ads, for people to use the information that apps might collect, you can reduce your presence on Facebook a little bit, you know, in terms of removing things like where you go to school, where you work, pages you like, and things like that. Now, of course, that will only take you so far, because on the other hand, there's tons of other ways that Facebook can learn about your interests and your habits. They, of course, track the websites that you browse across the internet, if those websites also partner with Facebook, and also obtain information that your friends upload about you as well. And so all of this complexity, I think, all of these different levers that Facebook has, I think kind of shows why you have some politicians at this point now saying this thing is so complex, it's so big, that perhaps we have to kind of step in and introduce a little bit of oversight, a little bit of regulation, because people just don't understand the implications.
And what about people who just throw their hands up and say, maybe I just need to shut it down, just get off Facebook?
Yeah, I mean, it's an attractive thought, but I mean, for some people, that's not a reality, right? There's people who, for them, Facebook is the only way they have to access the internet. It's the only way they can communicate with friends and family. It's practically a utility, and so you can't just throw your hands up and say, let's get rid of it, because for a lot of people, that's just not realistic.
So just be careful about the information you put out there.
It's one option.
Thanks, Matthew.
Thanks, Ian.
And the company at the center of this firestorm, Cambridge Analytica, is facing explosive new allegations tonight that go way beyond scraping data from Facebook. The UK's Channel 4 went undercover for months to expose their tactics to influence elections. Now, in this clip, the CEO, Alexander Nix, is secretly filmed suggesting entrapping candidates with a fake bribery scheme.
Equally effective can be just to go and speak to the incumbents and to offer them a deal that's too good to be true, and make sure that that's video recorded, instantly having video evidence of corruption.
Nix also suggests creating a sex scandal, using women from Ukraine to seduce political opponents in order to dig up information. In response, the company said, we routinely undertake conversations with prospective clients to try to tease out any unethical or illegal intentions.